Good evening. Welcome to RSBN Prime Time. I'm Robert McNeely. President Trump to attend a bilateral meeting with the Prime Minister of Japan, where it is tomorrow morning. And you see there the gorgeous 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, the White House, all lit up on this spectacular Monday evening, October 27th. 1 year ago tonight, we were in Madison Square Garden for President Trump's hometown rally, 1 week away from reclaiming the White House back on November 5th of last year, something that you did with your participation, your votes, whether it be Trump Force 47, getting involved with great networks like RSBN and attending these rallies. An exciting time on the campaign trail, and we look forward to what might happen next year during the midterms. But that same practice coming up over the course of the next week with the New York City mayoral election and Zohran Mamdani seeming as if he is now the leader of the modern Democrat Party, a communist, very likely to succeed in this race against Democrat turned independent Andrew Cuomo, who was once the governor of the Empire State, and of course against the Republican back-to-back nominee Curtis Sliwa, endorsed by America's mayor. Also, the Garden State next door experiencing a gubernatorial race of its own, and the Commonwealth of Virginia. So 3 races we're watching extraordinarily closely as they will come up next Tuesday, a week from tomorrow on November 4th, and really everywhere, and perhaps even your neck of the woods with municipal races, the early voting underway. So make sure you participate in those elections that are closest to you, because that's how our founders shaped this great constitutional republic. Federalism, states' rights. Amendment 10 to the Bill of Rights, clearly laying that out. And this administration, you can argue, is truly the federalist type of administration, wanting to scale back the power and the authority of the influence of the federal government, especially in things like the Department of Education, especially in matters when it comes to the right to life. And ultimately, with Roe v. Wade being rescinded thanks to the justices that President Trump put into place back during his first term. And right now, truly changing the entire geopolitical landscape through the use of tariffs, through the use of discussion with friend and foe, now a focus on this trip just underway in the Indo-Pacific. President Trump earlier today focused on Malaysia, which would have been yesterday for him, and hosting Cambodia and Thailand, signing a peace deal, and also trade deals involving rare earth minerals and countless other goods. Now that these places can dive into the market of the United States, something they've wanted to do for a period of time, and President Trump putting up that threshold of the use of tariffs and using that added layer of what is a tax. We saw actually the great golfer Phil Mickelson of the Golden State of California on X actually teach Governor Gavin Newsom just what those things are. And watching all of that take place, it has been something that President Trump has used in order to make his case to reshaping all of global trade. And I was researching this earlier today, and it's quite interesting to look at this trip specifically, because yesterday, October 26th, is truly the day America became an empire. Let me explain. While you watched TikTok, the United States just executed one of the greatest economic coups in human history. This might just seem like another trip, but really it's not. China controls 80% of rare earth materials and processing, the neurons of every single weapons system, smartphone, AI servers, completely on the planet Earth. And that's why they've had global domination for a long period of time. But there's one element, neodymium. Without it, F-35s don't fly, Teslas don't move, and data centers go dark. So Trump threatened to destroy $300 billion in Chinese exports with 100% tariffs. Now, Beijing responded by threatening to choke the global technology supply chain. And then something happened. There was a 72-hour checkmate of sorts over the course of the last 3 days. On October 24th, Malaysia signs a mineral pact. On October 25th, Thailand signs the processing deal. And now October 26th, just yesterday, China blinks in the process. Hidden in the first fine print, $13 billion of Australian rare earth processing. If you saw that last week, the Prime Minister visiting the White House. And with Cambodia extradition rights, Japan's 2010 playbook, which cut Chinese dependency by 30%, now deployed across $350 billion in American AI infrastructure. As we break all this down, we're joined by Jim Path of the Conservative Caucus. Good to see you, my friend. Let's break down this trip because I think we're really seeing a change on an entire global end in the last 72 hours with what President Trump has already accomplished in Malaysia, now touching down in Tokyo, Japan, to not only meet with the emperor last night, but now the prime minister, the new prime minister, who is someone of Shinzo Abe's ilk and should be able to work well with the United States.
Trump's part as the Middle East tour was earlier in the year. He's making some major changes to our relationships with countries in Asia, and it is very encouraging news to see what's happening in Japan. Shinzo Abe actually was doing a lot to, or at least had begun on a process of getting Japan and their fiscal house back in order, reimagining how they were doing things. You know, Japan has really suffered from the massive debt that they went into in the 80s and 90s. They're still kind of suffering from it, or have been. And Abe had begun the process of changing that. There's a lot of promise for this new leader in Japan, and I think you're going to see a very strong allied relationship between the new prime minister and Donald Trump.
Is there any anticipation, not only meeting with these great leaders from Cambodia to Thailand, focused in Malaysia as well? I really got a kick out of the president dancing alongside the traditional Malaysian dancers to welcome the president of the United States. That was something on full display to see. But where does this leave China and Xi Jinping? It should be a very interesting meeting because within the course of, really since January 20th, it seems as if the Chinese powers that be are really up against the ropes, given that President Trump has been so aggressive on the world stage.
Well, if what we've been hearing from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is a reality, and the markets seem to believe it is, because they've been so positive today, you're potentially going to see a breakthrough in negotiations with China. I think Donald Trump has masterfully handled the China situation and put them into a situation where they have to make a deal. I've contended for many years now that there is that we're not at major risk with China economically, even with the fact that so much manufacturing has gone over into Asia, and particularly there. That is an issue and has been a concern, and Donald Trump has begun to change that. But the deals that Donald Trump's been making around the world related to that issue have put China into a little bit of a box. They have some wiggle room. They're a fairly strong economy, and they also through the CCP control it entirely. So they're going to do what they want to do and have begun to try to flex their muscle. But Donald Trump has done a good job of countering that. I think he's shut down opportunities for China around the world, particularly in the Middle East, where this puts China at risk with their supply of oil and their supply of gas products that can be refined elsewhere or in China. And now they're finding themselves having to deal. That's what it seems, at least. And that would be the indication of what Scott Bessent is saying is about to happen, where it looks like the 100% tariffs that they were going to add on November 1st are now off the table to do this negotiation. Donald Trump will bring them back immediately if these negotiations fall apart. But look for something very interesting to take place while Donald Trump's on this trip. When he goes to Korea for the ASEAN conference and meets with Xi, that's where we're going to figure out if this is going to come to fruition. It could be a dramatic and fantastic opportunity to finally set world trade in a place where the United States is not bowing down as Barack Obama did with every world leader around the country, bowing to them rather than requiring them to bow to us, and finally get us back on track. You know, we're in a place this century, both since most favored nation status was given to China back in the late 90s, through Barack Obama's administration, where he was catering to whatever other world leaders wanted instead of utilizing the strength and ability and goodness of the United States to cause other countries to comply with us being the strongest economy in the world. We're finally seeing a shift in that process, which really is older than most favored nation status, frankly. And Donald Trump's been talking about it during that whole time. We're about to get into a place where we might have something near a final reset of international trade so that we're not paying the price for other countries to be able to do the business that they want to do while we suffer here at home.
Well, it seems as if, Jim, and that's a remarkable point as well, even our friends to the north in Canada, with the manipulation of Ronald Reagan recordings, and now the Reagan Foundation looking into potential lawsuits of the former president's voice and skewing that message, because we know before he left office in 1987, he did slap that 100% tariff on the Japanese government because they were at the time manipulating currency, much like the Chinese Communist Party does do. So we'll be watching all of that very closely. And I believe that of the modern presidents, we really have not had one quite like Donald Trump willing to walk away as he has with Canada. So that is off the table right now. How do you expect that to affect the economy here stateside?
Well, positively. Listen, a lot of people do forget, and actually we're so many years removed from it. A lot of people weren't even alive at the time of the 80s, when really Japan was the economic challenge to us in the world. I mean, what people talk about with China, it was Japan who was doing that at the time. Now, in that case, under less political military threat, because they were an ally, but they were seeking to really be the controlling economic power in the world. And it's partly why they went into so much debt, because of what their focus was. But yeah, I mean, what's interesting is what they quoted of that speech of Ronald Reagan's. What Ronald Reagan said in that speech is fundamentally true. You having constantly retaliating against countries on a raw basis, where if things are even and you think you're just going to grow an economy with tariffs, that principle still remains. Ronald Reagan was correct about that. But what they missed and what they twisted of that is that Ronald Reagan understood you had to have fair trade between countries. When people quote Milton Friedman in a similar fashion, Milton Friedman talks about that same issue. In fact, he and Milton Friedman were good friends. Friedrich von Hayek was still alive in much of the 80s and was also a friend of Donald Trump's. The two main proponents of free markets at the time, and since, frankly, ideologically, really did understand that just having trade wars because you want to protect yourself is not an appropriate way to handle tariffs. Donald Trump's approach is not about mere protectionism. He's trying to reset and reframe the deleterious trade policies that allowed other countries to have free trade with us and remove our ability to have free trade with them. Ronald Reagan understood that principle as well. And that is why he retaliated against Japan at that time. And I think it's really important that the President of the United States have the ability to deal with these situations, because Congress can't move quickly enough when other countries are taking advantage of us. And sometimes they make the wrong decision. And we need that negotiation to take place from the president's office, from the executive branch with these other countries. Donald Trump has masterfully used that ability, and I think it's going to get us onto a good footing moving forward in this country. It's been a tremendously positive effort, and we know that, frankly, because in fact, I was hearing Mohammed Al-Arian, who used to be the chief economist for Allianz, the major corporation Allianz, for many years. He's now at Pennsylvania at the Wharton School teaching, and even he admitted recently that he didn't think the tariffs would do anything but massively increase our inflation situation, and it didn't. And principally because inflation happens as monetary policy. It's not an effect of economic situations. There's a short-term inflationary effect within industries through regular economic activity. So therefore, when oil prices go up, that has an inflationary effect, but it's something that can work its way through the economy over time, because when in the midst of normal economic decisions being made, those things work themselves out. Companies make adjustments and so forth. But when you are printing money like crazy out of the Federal Reserve, that is where real inflation comes from. For those who understand their economics and understand the supply and demand curve, there's a difference between movement along one of the supply or demand curves and movements of the supply and demand curves. There's a supply and demand curve with money. And if you are making the supply of money really large, then you end up having actual inflation. But movements in economies, when there are changes in different industries, are movements along those curves. And those get adjusted because if it's along either of those curves, the other curves adjust to that in an appropriate way. And so this is why all the anger against what so-called supply-side economics was so wrong for so long. Because, you have to, the demand curve will move with supply. And that is where you can get decreases in costs, because the efficiencies of the market are a far stronger input into dealing with prices and dealing with stability in an economy. But the Federal Reserve throws that system off entirely when it prints, in recent years, the $7+ trillion of new money that it put into the economy. That was the driving factor of inflation that we had dealt with during the Biden administration, because government got out of hand, which is the other factor. When government spends money, the way it pays for it is through inflationary policies out of the Federal Reserve. That is what government uses to pay for the spending that it does. This is why Donald Trump's economic plan is going to be good in the long run, because we're on a trend, although albeit very slight at the moment, but we're on a trend of reduced government spending. And if we can get out of these deficits that we are suffering under, then we can have inflation work positively to our benefit in the long run. That's why all this economic effort to try to balance our trade relationships with countries around the world is actually a positive for the future and not a negative.
Well, thank you, Jim. I really do appreciate you breaking down the economic model behind it, because I really think that's what's taking up about 80%, if not more, of the entire model of this Make America Great Again, America First policy network that you find within the Trump administration. Now, going to Congress, we're entering week 5 of this shutdown. Do you see any end in sight, or is Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries going to continue to dig their heels in the sand? And now we know the only real development there, the Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries endorsing Zohran Mamdani for New York City mayor.
Well, they are going to keep digging their heels in, because the analogy of it being Hakeem Jeffries endorsing Zohran Mamdani, they are establishing themselves as a socialist party.
Oh, and Jim, we have to cut off and go to the president. My apologies there, who's meeting with the Japanese prime minister. And the bilateral meeting underway with President Trump and Prime Minister of Japan, the new Prime Minister, and someone who is in the cut from the same cloth of someone of Shinzo Abe and his fame, sadly losing his life to an assassination some years ago. A dear friend of President Trump. They would often golf together and highly enjoy time together at Mar-a-Lago. But we look forward to that bilateral meeting taking place just moments from now. And our thanks to Jim Paff. Sorry to have cut him off in that moment as the president came out there in Tokyo, Japan for these important bilateral meetings. And I think we do have Jim still with us, if you're on the line there, sir. And if we could cover, some of your thoughts on, it just seems as if these Democrats keep dragging their feet in the sand.
Yeah, the Democrat Party is really a socialist / Maoist communist party. They're not an American party. They're digging in because what they're fighting for are those socialist principles that they believe in, that they dearly believe in. It's why I keep asserting time and time again that the Democrat Party is not an American party. It's not in any way. And when I say that, just always
Jim,
clear.
I'm so sorry. You have to cut back to the president just at this moment now. Sanae Takaichi is the first female prime minister of the Empire of Japan and the president of the Liberal Democratic Party. But their Liberal Democratic Party is a center-right, if not conservative, nationalist party there in Japan. And again, as mentioned earlier, in the mentorship of the late, great Shinzo Abe, who really helped establish strong relations with the United States through that of his friendship with President Trump in a traditional ceremonial greeting taking place there in Tokyo, Japan. And the bilateral meeting will commence there as the president is on an Indo-Pacific tour that is changing the entire scope of global politics and free trade and fair trade as we know it, as we were very grateful to have Jim Path on, president of the Conservative Caucus, to break down really the economic responsibilities and ties to these extraordinary meetings. So in case you missed it, the president first arriving in Malaysia on Sunday morning, their time, and then just yesterday, the president engaging in trade agreements and peace accords with Cambodia and Thailand with their prime ministers right there in the host country of Malaysia. So this has a lot to do with rare earths. This has a lot to do with the prime minister of Australia being there at the White House just last week to go through all of that. So these are important developments, and all culminating in this very anticipated meeting between President Trump and ultimately the Chinese Premier Xi Jinping on China really needing to come to the table to renegotiate a number of different matters, as we listen to Secretary Bessent from Malaysia to Japan on these rare earth agreements. Now, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and this is a time when many families are searching for that clarity and hope with a disease that really has affected countless numbers of people. Options that are worth learning about, right to try, most favored nation status, you've heard that term, as well as President Trump's work with Health and Human Services to really open up affordable generics. Well, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN doing just that. Mebendazole is something needed for potential cancer support, and it's 40% off right now for Breast Cancer Awareness Month as we close the month of October. So order now at allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. All Family Pharmacy believes you deserve access to premium healthcare and quality pharmaceuticals that are generics, and explore the right to try, especially for you and your loved ones. They make the process simple. A licensed doctor will review everything with a pharmaceutical note in order to ensure it's appropriate, the right amount, and what is actually needed for the patient. Your medication is shipped directly to your door. For this final week of October, 40% off of Mebendazole right now for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. The discount is automatically applied at checkout. There's no code needed, just allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You will automatically have that 40% off there of Mebendazole for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Scan that QR code there, and you have that right to try. Why not take advantage of it here in the good old US of A? Allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. And Monetary Gold is wealth and preservation securities. What's important for your retirement, for your pensions, everything you worked hard for in this career. Grab your complimentary presidential gold guide today. In fact, call today. Do not delay. It's 888-617-7994. The complimentary presidential gold guide with number 45 and 47 on the front. That's how you can eliminate those annual IRA fees permanently and for life. RSBN4thegold.com. That is RSBN4thegold.com. Call immediately to discover how to do that. As you heard from Jim Path and even Robert Kiyosaki talking about the fact that banks fail in America when government spends. The inflation goes through the roof. We have a weak dollar right now, and much of that is because of the last administration and what they did with government spending through the Federal Reserve. That's how governments at times can take care of their own debt, but in turn skyrocket your savings. And it's just not a good idea to play with that kind of fire. So gold and silver, hot commodities. Silver experiencing a massive gold or surge right now, a massive bull market. The same with gold as well. So monetary gold, the best in the business. It's wealth, security, is preservation. RSBN forthegold.com. Call immediately to discover how you can eliminate those IRA fees permanently and for life. Thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history as we await just moments from now this bilateral meeting. Of course, you see their Secretary Marco Rubio, also Howard Lutnick, Ambassador Jameson Greer, Monica Crowley, Chief of Protocol, also of the ambassador status, greeting the Prime Minister. To the United States Cabinet, Susie Wiles, the Chief of Staff there, Caroline Leavitt, the superstar, the press secretary, all on hand for these very important bilateral meetings between the United States of America and the Empire of Japan. And we will watch this extraordinarily closely because so much happening in the Indo-Pacific over the course of the last couple of decades, including China being included in world trade and brought into that global order, which really in turn ended up putting our backs against the ropes. And as Mr. Jim Path pointed out, the Obama administration really did not do trade deals very well, but this man has. It's President Trump with the Japanese Prime Minister. We'll go there live now.
今トランプ大統領の部屋で野球を見ておりました。1対0でドジャースが勝ってます。
So to the press corps, I'm very sorry that we kept waiting. As a matter of fact, Mr. President and I myself just enjoyed watching the Major League Baseball match. Actually, Dodgers versus Blue Jays. And Dodgers is now having a 1-point lead, and we really enjoyed the match.
まずトランプ大統領の訪日を改めて歓迎申し上げます。で電話でも申し上げましたけれども、自民党総裁選挙に勝った直後にお祝いの発信をいただきありがとうございました。直接お会いできることを楽しみにしておりました。
So President Trump, let me extend a very warm welcome upon your visit to Japan. As I convey to you over the phone, I thank you for your congratulatory message to me right after my party LDP's presidential election, and I have been very much looking forward to seeing you in person here in Japan.
で安倍総理に対するもう長きにわたる友情に感謝をしております。また昨年末に安倍昭恵夫人を歓待いただいたことにも感謝を申し上げます。
First of all, thank you for your enduring friendship with Prime Minister Abe over the years. In addition, thank you for extending gracious hospitality to Mrs. Akie Abe at the end of last year.
実は安倍総理からはよくトランプ大統領のダイナミックな外交について話を聞いていました。タイとカンボジアの停戦に成功し、トランプ大統領はまずアジアの平和に貢献をされました。それから先般の中東における合意の実現もですね、これはかつてない歴史的偉業です。
As a matter of fact, Prime Minister Abe often told me about your dynamic diplomacy. Most recently, Mr. President succeeded in securing a ceasefire deal between Thailand and Cambodia and contributed to ensuring peace in Asia. Also, the deal you have recently achieved in the Middle East is an unprecedented historic achievement.
これだけの短期間に世界はより平和になりました。でこの世界の平和と安定のトランプ大統領の揺るぎないコミットを高く評価します。私自身も強い感銘を受けました。
In such a short period of time, the world started to enjoy more peace on the ground. And in this context, I highly value your unwavering commitment towards peace and stability. I, myself, was so impressed and inspired by you, Mr. President.
今や、日米は世界で最も偉大な同盟になりました。で日本も共に、世界の平和と繁栄に貢献をしてまいります。
Now both Japan and the United States have developed the greatest alliance in the world. And together with you, Japan is ready to contribute towards peace and stability.
私は日本の国益を守り抜くためにも強い日本外交を取り戻す決意です。そして自由で開かれたインド太平洋の進展に向けても日米でさらに協力を進めたいと考えています。
On diplomacy, I am determined to restore dynamic Japan's diplomacy to protect Japan's own national interests. In addition, I am ready to promote further collaboration with you and with the United States toward our shared goal of achieving a free and open Indo-Pacific.
私はこれから日本の国力、を強くするリーダーとして働いてまいる決意です。
So let me share with you my determination. I will continue to strive as the leader of Japan to strengthen Japan's national power, namely diplomacy, defense capabilities, economic power, technology, intelligence, and human resources.
来年は、米国建国250周年、ですよね。で、共に、日本も共に盛大にお祝いをしたいと思っております。ワシントン DC に250本の桜を、寄付する予定です。それからまた来年7月4日にはワシントン DC で日本の秋田県の花火が打ち上げられると聞いております。
Next year, the United States will mark the semi-quincentennial anniversary. Japan and I would like to join the United States to have a magnificent celebration. We will extend a gift of 250 cherry trees to Washington, D.C. In addition, I understand that fireworks from Japan, from Akita Prefecture, will be shown in Washington, D.C. on July 4th next year.
日本とアメリカを、より強く豊かにするために、日米同盟の新たな黄金時代をトランプ大統領とともに作り上げていきたいと願っております。ありがとう。
Through these efforts, together with you, Mr. President, I would like to realize a new golden age of Japan-U.S. alliance where both Japan and the United States will become stronger and also more prosperous. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you very much, and I want to congratulate you. As you know, Shinzo Abe was a great friend of mine, and I was very saddened to see what happened. It was so shocking, but he spoke so well of you, even before we knew what was going to happen and your ascension. He spoke so well of you long before we met, and I'm not surprised to see that you are now the Prime Minister. And he would be very happy to know that, and I congratulate you on behalf of the United States of America.
総理ありがとうございます。まずご着任の、に対して、祝したいと思います。晋三は私にとって非常に素晴らしい友人でありました。本当に、彼が亡くなったことはショッキングであり、悲しい出来事でありました。また、安倍晋三氏からは、かなり総理のことをよく話されておられました。ですので、お会いする前から、総理になるということを私が知る前から素晴らしい話をよく聞いております。ですので、晋三氏もかなり喜んでいらっしゃると思いますし、米側を代表して私の方からも祝したいと思います。
I know that you are increasing your military capacity very substantially, and we've received your orders for a very large amount of new military equipment, and you know that we make the best military equipment in the world, the jets, the missiles, and everything else, and hopefully we don't have to use them very much, if at all. But we appreciate that order, and we very much appreciate the trade. We're going to do tremendous trade together, I think more than ever before. We're just signing a new deal, and it's a very fair deal, and we look forward to welcoming Japan into the United States and a continuation. And it's something that everybody is very, very excited about.
でまた、日本の方も、かなり自衛隊や防衛費に関して、増加をされるということで、聞いております。このほか、米国から装備品の調達をされるということで、もちろん米国はベストな、戦闘機、ミサイル等を持っております。もちろん使いたくはないのですけれども、このような調達に関しても感謝申し上げたいと思います。貿易に関してもこれから増えていくことかと思います。また貿易協定の署名式もこれから、なされる、予定であります。非常に公平な、この協定になっていると思っておりますので、これからもこのような関係を継続していきながら非常にエキサイティングな時代になっていくと思います。
I have always had a great love of Japan and a great respect of Japan. And I will say that this will be a relationship that will be stronger than ever before, and I look forward to working with you. And on behalf of our country, I want to just let you know, anytime you have any question, any doubt, anything you want, any favors you need, anything I can do to help Japan, we will be there. We are an ally at the strongest level, and it's a great honor to be with you, especially so early in what will be, I think, one of the greatest prime ministers. I think you will be one of the great, everything I know from Shinzo and others, you will be one of the great prime ministers. I'd also like to congratulate you on being the first woman prime minister. That's a big deal. That's a big deal, and I want to congratulate you on that. I think that has to be called out. And you're going to do a fantastic job, and we're going to have a fantastic relationship. Thank you very much.
私は日本を愛してますし、非常に日本という国を尊敬しております。私たちの関係はこれから今まで以上に強力なものになっていくと思います。またお伝えしたいことは何らかの質問もしくは疑問、何か私たちでできることがあれば何なりと言っていただきたいと思います。日本は私たちにとって最も重要な同盟国であり、また総理にこのような早い段階でお会いできることを光栄に思っております。また、安倍晋三氏も言っておりましたけれども、非常に素晴らしい話を聞いております。ですので、高市総理はこれから目を馳せる総理になっていくと私は確信しております。また初めての女性総理ということで、これは非常にビッグディールだと私も思っておりますので、大きな期待を持っております。
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You might be wondering, what time is it in Tokyo, Japan? Well, they're 13 hours ahead of East Coast time. So it is 10:04 in the morning there on Tuesday, October 28th, as we are 9:04 Eastern on this gorgeous Monday evening. And not often do we get the privilege of watching the American flags in the evening on the north and south lawn of the White House, all lit up tonight. So it's fantastic to see that. And we are joined again, Mr. Jim Paff, president of the Conservative Caucus. Some glowing words from President Trump to the new prime minister, and he'd like to highlight the first female prime minister, and he's predicting a strong relationship as a result of the glowing words from the late, great Shinzo Abe.
Message that was very, very interesting to watch. Japan became, shortly after World War II, a very close friend of the United States. We did something through the Marshall Plan pretty amazing in helping Japan recover after the devastation that came because of their loss in the war, rightly so. They were acting in a manner during World War II that was horrendous, and yet they did come into the family of nations in a very positive way. And, we've had our ups and downs with them since, never really big downs, some very great ups, and I think we're on one of those very high upward trends moving forward, both because the new prime minister seems to be someone that actually understands economics in a Javier Milei sort of way, let's just make note of, and understands what is going to be best for the Japanese people. Donald Trump, one of the great things about his diplomacy around the world is he is trying to assert American power and American authority and American strength. but he's not doing so at the expense of other countries unless those countries are working in a manner against us that is harmful to their people and to us. But if they're a friend, Donald Trump makes them a very dear friend. And it's a reset in foreign policy that has been much needed over a long period of time. I mean, George W. Bush was horrible in this regard, for example. And not since Ronald Reagan have we had that sort of heart and mindset in our foreign policy. Donald Trump is definitely one of the greatest presidents in American history. And I believe if Republicans in particular, but any politician or any American is willing to continue this process moving forward, I think it is a potential for some amazingly positive things happening worldwide if we'll only embrace this.
And our congratulations as well to President Javier Milei, who was reelected in Argentina. We see this rise, Jim, of right-wing populism, whether it be Japan or Argentina, Italy, Hungary as well, as amongst others. But it's a worldwide trend given the leadership of President Trump. Yeah, and I'm very interested to figure out what Donald Trump's private discussions were with President Lula da Silva in Brazil. I mean, there is an autocratic effort happening from their Supreme Court and from Lula's government, a socialist communist government, and avowedly socialist and communist government. Lula is one of the founders of the Foro de São Paulo, the Sao Paulo Forum, that was a communist organization dedicated to advancing communism across Central and South America. He founded that organization in 1990 with Fidel Castro. They were the two founders of that organization. And his policies and his perspective are of that nature, very much like Democrats here in the United States. And there were positive things said after that meeting. I'm hoping that privately something very stern took place there, because we need both Brazil and Argentina to be strong partners in South America. And it could also, that's one of the key elements left in Donald Trump's efforts internationally that needs to have a successful conclusion towards liberty. Brazil is, not is a country on a path against liberty right now, but it's a key country. Its population is 2/3 of ours. Its natural resources mix is very broad and deep, just like ours is. And so therefore it's an important country. So I'm hopeful that will happen. But when you consider what Javier Milei is doing and what's now taking place in Japan, as well as other places worldwide, there's a very positive trend internationally. And Donald Trump was the only guy who could bring all that together. Joe Biden was eviscerating any hope for an expansion of freedom. Donald Trump has changed the game plan. We are not a country who's out trying to have regime change wars to try to force countries into our mold. Donald Trump is changing that so that we can build economic relationships that are fair and free and real with other countries, so that we create long-term relationships based on those economic relationships while still maintaining our power and authority as a country worldwide, and hopefully, and certainly in Donald Trump's administration, based upon a heart that has a moral character to it. And I know that's making some Democrats' minds explode as I say that, but has a moral character to it that is based on win-win relationships, that seeks the good of others while not compromising what we need to be and should be as a nation. Very well said. There's such truth to that. As part of this bilateral meeting today, or really tomorrow in Japan, it's already Tuesday, they're 13 hours ahead. This discussion of buying of American military assets will be part of that dialogue. I'm sure China will be watching that very closely throughout Asia and the Indo-Pacific. Do you feel, Jim, as if the Brazilian president, Lula, as mentioned, might be watching what's happening with Maduro and Venezuela, because many of our warships are now in Trinidad and Tobago, ready to engage if necessary. The Secretary of State, Secretary of War, the President of the United States, clearly leaving everything on the table. In fact, something that most of the mainstream outlets did not touch on, Maduro tried to cut a rare earths deal, a minerals deal, also different goods with the United States. And Marco Rubio and the president flat out just said, no, it's not happening as long as you continue with your communist dictatorship and the narco trafficking.
Yeah, well, as you know, I have very deep connections in Brazil. I know a couple dozen of the members of the Chamber of Deputies down there, their Congress. I'm close friends with the Bolsonaro family, including Eduardo Bolsonaro in particular, and have some connection with the former President Jair Bolsonaro. This is an area of the world I know very well and am very close to. Have many other friends down there too. I do believe that Donald Trump is willing to let Lula da Silva know that he is going to be strong. The Maduro situation is far more potentially destructive. We have a flow of drugs coming from Venezuela that have been very harmful to citizens in this country, and a government that frankly is illegitimate. You know, he lost this last election and just maintained power, just threw out the results, and Maduro did, and maintained his presidency there. And the people in Venezuela seem to be very upset about it. Of course, he has his supporters, but I think the people in general are against what's happening there. You've had millions of Venezuelans expatriate to particularly Spain and some other countries to try to get away from the situation. So they've suffered under that. In Brazil, you do have an authoritarian push, but it hasn't quite gotten to the depths of what's taking place in Venezuela. But there are some very real risks that are in Brazil. If you go into the western part of the country, connected, near Paraguay and Ecuador, for example, there is a massive drug trafficking constituency in that part of Brazil that is very dangerous, that is participating with the overall drug trade coming out of South America and Central America that does affect the United States. So that is definitely going to be in the back of President Trump's mind and Secretary of State Rubio's mind. They're aware of this. They know how bad that situation is. But the country itself doesn't provide the same particular threat that Venezuela does right now that has caused Donald Trump to show some military might in the area. The threat that does exist from Brazil is you've got a rogue Supreme Court Justice, Alexandre de Moraes, who is the Chief Justice of their Supreme Court, who is specifically attempting to take away liberties and freedoms from Americans and people worldwide by putting out judicial orders that say that if social media companies in particular and some other companies do not comply with Brazilian law, then they will be sanctioned. I mean, comply with Brazilian law internationally. So he is making very specific attempts to shut down free speech amongst Americans on social media platforms. And there are many Brazilians, there are hundreds of thousands of Brazilians who live in the United States, some of them American citizens, who he wants to shut down because they are influencing the population back in their native country. But it goes even beyond that. Alexandre de Moraes has sent federal police from Brazil into the United States to attempt to cause problems with, and even in one instance that I know of with a friend of mine, to kidnap a former Brazilian citizen, American citizen, to kidnap her because she was saying things about the Brazilian government on her social media platforms. It's a friend of mine who lives in the Miami area. He literally was trying to kidnap her about a year or so ago. We know this for a fact. It's well documented. He actually is trying to extradite her to go on charges that Moraes brought against her from the Brazilian Supreme Court just because of social media posts. And she's an American citizen. Donald Trump is aware of this. It's a big issue related to Brazil. So their threats to us are more along those lines, less related to the particular problems that are happening out of Venezuela. But I know Donald Trump has no problem letting Lula da Silva and Alexandre de Moraes know that he is willing to protect American interests, with military presence in the region. And I think he's right to do so. I would not, I don't think, support a military incursion into Venezuela, but I do believe that the efforts he's undertaking to take down drug boats that are coming through international waters, I think that he's right to take that on. I think a military presence there serves a dual purpose of being able to undertake those stoppages of drug boats coming in the United States and international waters. They're going to be more capable of doing that rather than flying A-10s over the seas and targeting them with those fantastic aircraft, those A-10s. But now you're going to have a military presence where they can respond specifically to those boats coming through those international waters. But it serves the dual purpose of completing that mission, but also keeping Venezuela on notice that we're not going to put up with Maduro's way of handling things.
Yes, we'll watch this as it's developing, ever-changing day in and day out on the global scale. And it's something really to watch, Jim, as well, because we're right on the cusp of an election next week where someone who holds these same belief systems as people like Maduro and Lula, I don't think it's an exaggeration by any means, Zoran Mamdani in New York City, could bring this kind of governance to America's largest city and to a place that really is the capital center of economics on truly a global scale.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Frightening to watch all of it. But Jim Paff, thank you so much for your time today, for sticking with us at RSBN Prime Time to really break down these global affairs and everything that's happening domestically. Before we go here, any predictions on what will happen come now week 5 into the government shutdown?
Well, I think it's going to continue by my best estimation, and of course, no one really knows, but my best estimation, at least through November 15th. I don't think that Democrats, particularly Chuck Schumer, are going to give up the battle merely because the American Federation of Government Employees came out and said they want it to stop. That may, though, move some senators and might give them, some wiggle room to go ahead and vote for the continuing resolution, which is just a clean continuation of current government spending. That may happen, but I think they're digging their heels in. They put themselves in a box. They have to have the fight that they're having because of what they've decided they want to be as a party. And so I see this continuing on for some time, at least November 15th, at least by the current estimation that I make. It could go much longer than that because Democrats want to have this battle. They are for expansion of government, for a continuation of the failing Obamacare, which on the basis of what they want out of it proves that Obamacare is failing, but they're going to continue down that path because they want socialized medicine in this country, which we in effect have. And there are other issues as well, too. They want to continue the spending patterns that have caused us so many problems. So that is their entire way of thinking, and it's hard to back out of that. If they back out of it, if they give up on that, then they cede the argument to Donald Trump, and that's something they don't want to do. So look for it to continue on for some time moving forward.
We will watch it very closely. Jim Paff, president of the Conservative Caucus. Come back and see us soon at Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
And as President Trump continues in his bilateral meeting with the Japanese Prime Minister, right ahead of us, President Trump to attend a signing ceremony. On the docket for discussion, the sale of American military equipment to the Japanese Empire, and perhaps more discussions on rare earths and minerals, as you've seen in this Asian trip, specifically last week with the Australian Prime Minister Albanese joining President Trump at the White House for that landmark deal, which is looking to total around the $13 billion mark as it takes shape. And now peace between Cambodia and Thailand as Malaysia welcoming as the host country President Trump in a dance of sorts. We saw somewhat of the YMCA dance coming out to traditional Malaysian music, a high honor for any foreign head of state, as Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi is meeting with President Trump at the moment. We will take you to that signing ceremony when it happens at 10:20 on Tuesday morning in Tokyo, Japan. It's 9:21 now here stateside. Stick with us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network as we take a quick commercial break.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First news. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Tired of being told no by your doctor, your pharmacy, or worse, your insurance company? You're not alone. Millions of Americans are waking up to a broken healthcare system. That's why more and more people are turning to All Family Pharmacy. We believe in medical freedom. We deliver the prescription and the medication, all from licensed U.S. doctors and pharmacists, from ivermectin and trusted antibiotics to maintenance medications, even NAD+, the revolutionary anti-aging supplement. Use code RSBN10 at checkout for 10% off your first order.
Every once in a while, something big happens, something that changes everything. And now, in a defining moment for crypto, Trump Media Group and Crypto.com are joining forces to acquire up to $6.4 billion of CRO, launching America's first ever CRO treasury, empowering the Kronos blockchain. This is more than a partnership. It's the future of finance built in America. For more, visit Crypto.com, where millions trade CRO every day.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. We are awaiting President Trump and the Japanese Prime Minister to attend a signing ceremony at the bottom of the hour. Pleased to be with you on RSBN Prime Time tonight, as it is now 10:23 Tokyo time, Tuesday morning, October 28th. So we look forward to bringing that to you there, as it's all smiles between the Japanese and United States delegations, even hitting on the fact that they are rooting for the Los Angeles Dodgers in the World Series as that commences right away. I won't share the score quite yet with you here, although I'm following, just in case you happen to be recording the game, and we'll watch that right after, of course, this coverage of Right Side Broadcasting Network live here in Auburn, Alabama, the loveliest village on the plains, as we take you to Tokyo, Japan, for this very important meeting. Some key findings in the upcoming New York City mayoral's race, as that takes place next Tuesday, a week from tomorrow. If there are races in your neck of the woods, I hope you're involved. Get out there and vote earlier or vote on the day of, because with our federal constitutional republic for which it stands, our founders were so smart in their shaping of federalism, and that the government closest to you really affects you on a day-to-day basis. And that's the sad thing. Most people don't turn out for their municipal elections, but God knows New York City is going to be a crucial one, with a communist Democrat, Zoran Mandani, up against the Democrat turned independent, the former governor of the Empire State, Andrew Cuomo, and the Republican nominee from last election, and now Curtis Sliwa, endorsed by America's Mayor Rudy Giuliani. But the Lake Research Partners poll found that 72% of likely New York City voters support a gradual raise of the minimum wage to $30 an hour for all workers, with only 19% opposed. Now, support climbs to 78% when voters learn the proposal includes tipped workers. Approval is strongest among black voters at 81%. Latino voters make up 75% of that, women at 74%, and voters under 40 at 73%, respectively. Now, across all 5 boroughs, support remains consistently high, making New York City the most supportive city among those recently surveyed nationwide. These findings reinforce that affordability and wages are central to voter decision-making, and that New Yorkers view higher wages and higher pay as the most direct and effective way to confront the city's cost of living crisis. So someone who has taken advantage of that message has been, no doubt, Mr. Zoran Mamdani in that moment, although he really failed to give large specifics in the 2 debates he has had with the Republican nominee, Mr. Sliwa, and the independent candidate, Mr. Cuomo. So from the Empire State to the Empire of Japan, it is Right Side Broadcasting Network Prime Time. We are happy to join you on this Monday evening. It's Tuesday morning there in Japan as President Trump hosting that bilateral meeting, or being hosted by the Japanese government, and the prime minister, the first female prime minister to serve in that role, really a product of the Shinzo Abe outlook on governance. They are of the Liberal Democrat Party of Japan, but much different than our Liberal Democrat Party here stateside. They are a conservative nationalist movement that we've seen really throughout the world, from Brazil with Mr. Bolsonaro, before what took place with Lula right now, as they're in some conflict there. Somewhat repeating the history of what took place, the lawfare against President Trump, as we watch with countless indictments against Mr. Bolsonaro and his son, in fact. We'll be staying close on that as right-wing populism is growing throughout the world, from Italy to Hungary and many other nations. As Jim Paff so aptly explained here on the network as our special guest tonight, you really see that open dialogue happening, whether it be friend or foe. President Trump makes extraordinarily clear through the use of not only direct dialogue and negotiations, but his cabinet, specifically with the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, and the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who said very clearly at the beginning of this administration, if it does not serve the interests of the United States and the United States government, then it's a no-go. It's all about an America First foreign policy. And as Jim pointed out as well, someone who really failed at this, not only Barack Obama, but his predecessor, George W. Bush. We've seen Republican and Democrat presidents both tank in regards to foreign diplomacy and dialogue and negotiation in order to put our country first. And because of the leadership of President Trump, we've seen somewhat of this spur of right-wing nationalism and populism throughout the world, which really works out to be beneficial for not only American citizens, but citizens like you see there in Japan, where economies become stronger, there are more freedoms, and in turn, sovereignty is respected. There's no exporting of democracy like we saw during the Bush administration by force, but rather bolstering up national defense and international security in order to serve each and everyone's citizens to the best of their ability. President Trump made this clear in 2019, all the way to now in 2025, even with dealing with an escalator that broke, to a teleprompter that wouldn't work, to an audio system that was seemingly broken, at least during his speech during the 80th session of the UN General Assembly just weeks ago, that the MAGA doctrine, the America First policies put forth, were defended, and ultimately that meant to defend your own respective sovereignty. And as President Trump reiterated it, I will always be behind my American people first, as you should be behind the people who put you in your respective positions. It's really common sense at the highest level, but you have some throughout the world that want a communist new world order. It's very clear that the unholy triumvirate of communism, Islamism, and secular humanist or globalist thought that America and these other America first or right-wing populist nations that want to put their own countries first are the antithesis. So you're going to have this back and forth, this tug of war, if you will, between nations throughout the world, all 196 industrialized nations. As we watch President Trump and the Prime Minister of Japan in really an ornate, gorgeous building there. Glad that the cameraman could show you that there from the pool in Tokyo, Japan, at the head of their government. An empire that we were once at war with, one that had to face justice as it once did practice those old samurai codes and did not see an end to the war until we had no other choice but to drop the atom bombs, a new technology that was quite frightening at the time. And as President Trump has put it, what has developed from that in recent technologies, these things, these weapons are even more powerful and more frightening than could have ever been imagined. And that's why diplomacy first is the way to go about these things. Just think back to the Autopen administration. You had someone like Vladimir Putin, who is, many people have different opinions on him, but not necessarily the best of guys. We've seen that innocents have been targeted in Ukraine, throughout Kiev, most recently with drone strikes on kindergartens and hospitals. It's dastardly and it's horrible. And President Trump and the administration slightly changing some foreign policy based on those last meetings in Anchorage, Alaska, and right there in the White House. And President Zelensky coming on 2 more occasions over the course of roughly 2.5 months in order to dialogue on this and to ultimately purchase more Tomahawks to defend itself. But President Putin, who does all of that, is very careful with his tongue and mentioned even during the Autopen administration that nuclear war was on the table. That's all gone now, thanks be to God. And I think the curtain once again, not only from the first term of President Trump, but in this now second non-consecutive term, being pulled back on just how scary the world was under the Autopen administration and the lack of clarification and the lack of having sovereign borders. They were wide open to watch all of the drug and fentanyl trafficking that took, the human trafficking that took place. President Trump in less than a year cleaning it up on a global level. So it's truly a pleasure to be with you here at RSBN on this primetime Monday evening. It's Tuesday morning in Japan as we await the signing ceremony between the United States and Japan just moments from now. So as we break all of this down, with the Asian trade up to 20%, Chinese rare earth market share dropping for the first time in 30 years, American supply chains rerouting in real time while Beijing realizes the trap that's been set. It's been fascinating to watch on a global scale. 180 billion did not vanish. It just relocated to nations that bend the knee. This is the number ultimately that potentially will end globalization as we know it. Now, U.S.-China trade was at $758 billion in 2018. It's now down to $578 billion from calendar last year, so 2024. Here's what is not being shared on most media mainstream markets. This isn't trade negotiation. It's a tribute collection. And the president just converted the world's largest consumer market from a trade partner into a consumer. And ultimately can utilize that as a weapon to renegotiate all of the global trading across the world. Now, every nation now faces a choice: access to American markets or access to Chinese supply chains. Not both, never again, all with the work that President Trump has done on a global scale on nearly every continent. Now, the 20 billion soybean freeze that we're watching, the first since 2018, is not retaliation. It's a demonstration. China can inflict pain, but America can inflict extinction with its power. Remember, President Trump eliminating those nuclear facility sites in Iran, 3 of them all through B-2 bombers that were untraceable during the entire time they were in Iran, and then followed by Tomahawk missiles. Now, that pattern that broke reality 17 times since 2018, identical playbooks have happened. There's the announcement of apocalyptic tariffs, that somehow this won't work for the United States. We hear that from American media, sometimes British media, and around the world. Then the markets crater, China retaliates, and then exemptions appear for the allies. The pressure multiplies on Beijing. Now, 63% of Chinese goods face maximum tariffs. Only allied nations, right around a 4% number. So every chaotic threat that's calculated, every impulsive tweet, move by supply chains, every trade war. Remember back when Brexit happened that, oh, this will destroy the American economy, the United Kingdom's economy. Well, in turn, the dollar and the pound got stronger as a result against the naysayers. Now, every kind of headline that's marked by the systematic dismantling of Chinese technological sovereignty, things end up working out better, seemingly, for the United States, America. Now we'll see, as November 1st, President Xi to meet with President Trump at this APEC meeting. And allegedly, we'll see if the deal is already done. We know there's a lot of discussion behind the scenes. We heard from the press gaggle on Air Force One from Malaysia to Japan with Secretary Bessent, Ambassador Greer there as well. They work closely hand in hand through all of this, and that rare earth access for tariff relief could be on the table. American boots on Asian rare earth facilities. We're seeing that throughout the Indo-Pacific, and we saw that in Australia just last week with that new trade deal. So ultimately, China could save face in all this, but America gets to determine the future. Taiwan now having AI dominance, technological independence, and the end of a competitive multi-plurality, all bundled into a trade framework that the media might call a failure, but you could have a place like Taiwan free and safe from any Chinese threat. So you watch that all closely, including this right here in Tokyo, Japan, where the United States and the Japanese will agree to military arms sale, if not other things in this signing ceremony to take place, as the bilateral meeting roughly should be wrapping up moments from now. So we will take you there live to the signing ceremony between the president and the prime minister. So ultimately, as we watch this tour this week leading up to the Halloween celebration, somewhere where President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump will be at the White House lawn to welcome those adorable kids, the future of our country, to the White House for candy and celebration. Globalization did not necessarily collapse, but it was conquered by President Trump and by this administration in a way that's seen free trade through fair trade, through dialogue and discussion, and, as he put on Air Force One, might even have time to meet with Kim Jong-un of Korea. So that being worked on behind the scenes, and we will bring you any of those updates as after the Japanese meeting down to Korea and ultimately to meet with the premier of China, Xi Jinping. But this is something that really will frighten the Chinese Communist Party, to have economic power and military might throughout the Indo-Pacific to keep it at bay and to keep it checked. If you read great books by Supreme Allied commanders of past, including not only 2028, but 2054, and the plans that the Chinese Communist Party has for global domination. In fact, they said by 2027, they want the strongest Navy in the world. And could they be on course for that? Absolutely. But with this administration and bolstering up manufacturing within the United States and shipbuilding, as President Trump has really been touching on, we could see that whole narrative change nearly overnight. So we'll watch all of that as we are breaking down everything for you right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. We look forward to the signing ceremony just moments from now. We'll take a quick commercial break for sponsors. Stick with us here, Right Side Broadcasting Network, Prime Time.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door. Welcome back to RSBN Prime Time as President Trump to attend a signing ceremony in Tokyo, Japan, upcoming. We'll take you there live as the White House released all of the successes. President Trump opening this Asian trip by securing landmark wins for America, and yet another display of strength and unmatched deal-making ability. President Trump kicked off his historic Asia tour with powerhouse visit to Malaysia, brokering peace accords, slashing trade barriers, and locking in game-changing critical minerals deals. Now, peace deals. President Trump brokered the Kuala Lumpur peace accords thanks to the decisive leadership and pursuit of peace by the Trump administration. The leaders of Cambodia and Thailand joined President Trump in signing a historic peace deal to end the military conflict between the two countries, saving literally millions of lives. Now, President Trump signed historic trade deals with both Malaysia and Cambodia, and under the two agreements, tariffs will be eliminated. Let's go there now to the President and the Prime Minister at the signing ceremony.
大臣とドナルド・J. トランプアメリカ合衆国大統領です。The signatories are Her Excellency Ms. Takaichi Sanae, Prime Minister of Japan, and the Honorable Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. デレゲーションの方はお座りください。The members of the delegation are kindly requested to be seated. まず最初の文書でございますけれども、合意の実施、日米同盟の新たな黄金時代に向けての署名です。First document is implementation of the agreement toward a new golden age for the Japan-US alliance. 続きまして、文書、採掘加工を通じた重要鉱物及びレアアースの供給確保のための日米間枠組みへの署名です。Next document is United States-Japan Framework for Securing the Supply of Critical Minerals and Rare Earths through Mining and Processing. 以上をもちまして署名式を終了いたします。両首脳が退出いたします。This concludes the signing ceremony. The two leaders are leaving for the room to proceed the next venue.
Thank you.
All the delegation members are kindly requested to proceed to the next venue with the leaders.
Mr. President, you successfully convinced Europe to spend 5% of defense. Should Japan do the same?
We kindly ask all members of the press to allow the leaders to proceed to the next venue. Thank you very much for your kind cooperation.
So again, that crucial agreement with rare earths as well. This does put China really has its back against the ropes with President Trump leading the way here. They are no longer going to dominate on a global scale because President Trump is working with friends and allies to strengthen rare earths deals with Her Excellency, the Prime Minister, Sanae Takaichi, and she is the newest Prime Minister, really just being in office for a matter of days since October 21st. So not even a week now into the office, that it's Tuesday there over in Japan, leading the way and making sure to meet with President Trump as he's clearly quite fond of her and was quite fond of Shinzo Abe, really her political mentor, the late great Prime Minister of Japan, who was sadly taken by an assassin's bullet. Now, her political career mostly was in their House of Representatives on several occasions from 1993 until 2003, and then from 2005 on. But as the president put it, Shinzo extraordinarily fond of the new prime minister, and as President Trump put it, he would be very happy to see her in the position that she's in to strengthen this alliance and the ties between the American and Japanese people. As they did mention the bilateral meeting as well, that they are watching the Los Angeles Dodgers closely as they take on the Toronto Blue Jays. Baseball is quite a sport that is played and followed in Japan with some of the most extraordinary players as of recent years coming through the Major League Baseball, having grown up in Japan as well. So we'll watch that closely. I won't share the score of that game in case you're recording it as you're watching Right Side Broadcasting Network. If you like what you see, well, it's getting more exciting because on this trip, President Trump also inked tariff barriers to be addressed and market access to be expanded, with reciprocal trade frameworks in Thailand and Vietnam as well. Under the two frameworks, the countries will address tariff barriers on a range of U.S. goods and provide preferential market access for United States industrial and agricultural exports. So we're watching all of this very closely, from Malaysia to the dealings of Thailand and Cambodia, peace, new trade deals now, and with Vietnam as well in agreements, to Japan, then on to Korea, and ultimately to meet with President Xi Jinping of the Chinese Communist Party, a big Indo-Pacific trip, and throughout Asia for the President of the United States. If you like what you see here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, feel free to donate. We're taking on the mainstream media peacefully and patriotically because those legacy outlets, sometimes they're pretty anti-American, but we here are on the correct side of history, the right side of history. RSBnetwork.com/donate. You may also text RSBN to 801-801 where you'll get that prompt to donate online. We also have a spot for checks and money orders. 1550-1550, Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344, the loveliest village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama, 36830. That's 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344, Auburn, Alabama, 36830. Thank you for tuning in to RSBN's Prime Time. And Mr. Producer, do we by chance have those pictures from 1 year ago ready to showcase? Oh, yes, we're going to share you some pictures because you might have recognized this October 27th date. And one of the bigger rallies that was out there, New York City, can you believe it's been 1 year from then? Madison Square Garden. That was quite an event to experience and be part of with countless people, including the late, great Hulk Hogan, who spoke on behalf of President Trump in his hometown of New York City. And another big election just around the corner for them a week from tomorrow, where it'll be very frightening to see this communist Democrat, Zoran Mamdani, who is leading right now, but there could be a last-minute miracle, whether it be the former Democrat turned independent former governor of the Empire State, Andrew Cuomo, or the Republican candidate, Curtis Lee. We'll watch that all very closely as Zoran Mamdani, recently endorsed by Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, finally caving to the far left as we saw a big rally put on by AOC and crazy Bernie Sanders. So we'll watch that all very closely in the coming week with also big elections in the Garden State next door in New Jersey and the Commonwealth of Virginia. For all America First updates and exclusive offers at rsbnetwork.com/newsletter, please like, share, and subscribe with your friends on a gorgeous Monday evening stateside in the Federal City at 9:53 Eastern. It's 10:53 in the morning on Tuesday, October 28th, in Tokyo, Japan, where the President of the United States and the new Japanese Prime Minister signing bilateral agreements and meeting on the futures of our two great nations. For all of my colleagues here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, thank you for tuning in to RSBN Prime Time. May God be with you, and we'll see you all very soon.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed, so join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door.